Thanks, Wendy. Today we're going to talk about attracting the right talent, and I guess to tie it into what Peter was talking to before, you probably need to have the right talent to drive the value of your business. To drive your sales, you need to be able to find the right people. And we're going to look today with regards to how to attract them to your business, probably prior to application. So prior to you actually meeting them, what can you do in your business and what do candidates actually look for within that? And there's two things I want you to bear in mind while I'm doing it. One is you would have seen where the market has been probably most recently, where it's very candidate-led, or what we'd call candidate-led, and the applicants hold a lot of the power. That changed, if you go back, during COVID, it was very employer-led because there weren't a whole lot of jobs, so the people that were looking didn't have anything to go to. That's currently gone the other way, and it's probably about to rebalance. Like any market, the labour market will correct. So just bear that in mind. And the other thing is there's not a right or wrong answer to a lot of the stuff that's here. It's got to be about you understanding your business and what's right for your business. And actually, Richard and I were discussing the work from home conundrum earlier, and to say it was robust and we probably had slightly different opinions was an understatement with regards to that. But what we'll cover today, now I'm going to try and get this to work as well. There we go. We're going to look at what the current market looks like. Then what we're going to cover off is, as I said, the candidate life cycle. So if you were with Richard and I when we discussed 12 months ago, we talked about the recruitment life cycle, and it was more with regards to how businesses look at that life cycle. This is now looking at it from the candidate's perspective. So what are the candidates actually looking for? What are they looking for in a job, but probably more important than the job, what are they looking for in a company, in an industry, before they actually start looking at roles? Then how do candidates find out about your business? One thing I did do on that, I did a very rudimentary survey with regards to Vic Leader websites, just with regards to how they look and what have you, and we'll come to the findings on that a little bit later. But then also, what can you do? And then there should be some time for Q&A. Throughout today, we will have a lot of those polls that come up. I think there's probably 4 through it, so we can work from there. But I'm going to hand over now to discuss the current market to Mr. Elston.
So you've probably seen all these headlines and probably heard loads of things on the loads of radio commentary and loads of television news stories about the talent shortage that is potentially happening right now, or the fact that we are struggling to attract Gen Z candidates. I think Pip was talking about that earlier today. And how do we keep the people and how do we keep candidates or people engaged in their current roles? We're in an applicant short market. That means that for every job that's out there, there are less people applying for each of those jobs. And because there are less people applying for those jobs, the actual way we find talent is particularly hard. There's often a mismatch between candidate and client expectations. Candidates, that's actually candidates is what we call them really, but they are the people, the job seekers, if you like, are wanting one thing, and the client or you guys are wanting something quite different often. Obviously, the borders have been closed as well, and that puts pressure on the market as it comes through. If you can imagine, we've been relying as a nation on getting loads of people on working holiday visas coming through the system. Obviously, working holiday people aren't coming in here, which means that Australians that would normally be doing the jobs that you guys want them to do are under pressure to go and work on the farms and work in cafes, etc. And that makes things hard, and that makes things hard for you to attract people. there's an uplift in salary expectations. You know, Andrew and I were talking the other day. There was just to give you some idea, there was a project management role that Andrew's wife is working in the construction industry, normally pays $170,000. They were offering $250,000 for the same person. So, the uplift in salaries is massive, and that is obviously going to have a massive uplift in inflation figures as well. And then the other thing, working from home, hybrid, working in the office. A lot of companies right at the moment are going through trying to bring their workers back into the office and mandating to get people back into the office. The workers have been enjoying working from home. They've been enjoying the flexibility from working from home. So even on LinkedIn, they've got a new category of hybrid on LinkedIn Recruiter, or if you're looking for a job, will you be prepared to do that? So all of these things are very much sort of post-COVID or in the middle of COVID, and these are some of the issues that are happening. The other thing that applicants are looking for, or candidates as we call them, are reasons to come and join you as an organisation. What are your employee value propositions? People are looking at those before they'll even apply for a job. So there is an adjustment coming, and Andrew and I have differing views about what that adjustment might be. This is an interesting period right at the moment.
I think even though we've got different views, actually that attraction of talent is an issue. Doesn't matter what sort of market you're in. It's more of an issue at the moment, but even when you've got a market that doesn't have that, you're still fighting for the right talent against other companies. So actually having this, doesn't matter if it's a candidate short market or it's candidate rich, you still want to attract the best candidates or the best people to come and work for you. And that's what we're gonna look at with regards to it. There's some stats here very quickly with regards to from SEEK. So national job ads, they're actually at I think all-time high in terms of being posted on SEEK currently. They're up by 2.1% that's from last month. They're up 26%, give or take, from a year ago. And actually, I think if you looked at it pre-COVID, it's still up by about 16, 17%. The applications per job ad are down, and they're at a record low. So that just goes to show that, one, you've got to look at other options other than advertising. So what are you doing before people get to that point of applying? And it's across all markets. So if you look at that, you've got, that's the top 10 industries by job and volume. That's covers most of, or a lot of, the market, from trades and services, hospitality and tourism. I tell you what, there's a reason that I went and got my eyes tested the other day and need glasses. Healthcare and medical, manufacturing, transport, ICT, administration and office support, retail, consumer products. It's across the board with regards to where this is. So
I was going to say something about hospitality. There was 6 months ago, there was 20,000 hospitality jobs in Melbourne CBD open. 20,000. And that's the reason that there were some, restaurants that were closed, or they would only open at some times because they just couldn't find the staff. So, and in the UK, people were using these apps. So people were leaving shifts in London from one bit, because they were being offered a shift by an app. And so they left one at £15 an hour, and they went across the road to get one at £25 an hour because they couldn't find staff either. So, and this was literally mid-shift. So,
and I guess to draw a comparison to here, that will happen, and it's happening an awful lot with candidates that you'll offer a permanent role to. They'll accept it, and a week later they'll get offered another role, and the salary that they've been offered on the other role is an extra $20,000 or whatever it might be. And we'll come on to something in a little bit with regards to what's important to candidates. And often people will say that, look, money's not important, it's about the progression, it's about the culture, it's about this. I'd argue that it's not about money until it's about money. If you offer someone, on $70,000 an extra $30,000, likelihood is they're going to take the $30,000. But that just brings us back to, and it also makes some of this stuff more important. This is going to really test my eyes. Yeah, you probably got it probably better on the Mentimeter app.
Do you want me to read it out?
Yeah, if you can. Yes, Richard. You don't need glasses. You're the older guy here. In effect, what we're going to focus on mostly, I'm going to actually get closer to it. Yeah, is much easier-ish. We're going to focus on the yellow areas. So if you work through it, people think about what moving. They're starting to think about moving. Then they think, okay, what do I actually want to do? Then you come to the next one. They start thinking about, okay, what's actually important to me in my next role with my next company? What industries and companies do I want to work in? What actually match what's important to them? Then they start looking and researching, and those two will probably jump around in terms of they'll cross against each other. So they'll start searching and applying for roles. They'll use Seek, Indeed, LinkedIn. They'll use a recruiter. They'll come directly. They'll use their network. And the research piece will be via your website and LinkedIn. They're probably the first two that they're going to use. Then you've got things like Glassdoor. You've got social media. They'll use their network, or certainly I would be suggesting that they use their network a lot more. That's all before they've met you. So and that's what we're going to focus on. We're going to focus on, like I said earlier, before they meet you. Then you're going to interview, and they're probably interviewing at 3 to 5 roles at the moment. That won't always be the case. They're then going to get offers at 2 to 3 places. Then they're going to compare the offers, and then they're going to accept and start. They might then accept, decline, accept, start, and then sort of work through again. But the stuff that they do here will massively impact when they're comparing the offers and the accept and start part of it.
The other thing, if you look at LinkedIn, we've got LinkedIn Recruiter, which is a highly expensive tool. 40% of people on LinkedIn are casually or actively looking. So you can almost guarantee that if you've got 10 staff, 4 of them, okay, are looking. And you've got to think about the risk around that. And that goes back to what Peter was talking about as well, around the risk, of potentially breaching covenants for full debt. If you haven't got the staff, you might not be able to do what the clients are looking for. And if you're doing that, then you've got a problem.
So first Mentimeter. This will be good. What can do it there? You can do it that way. It's just Peter that has to point it that way. So what's important for candidates when they're considering who they want to work for and the role? So what's going to influence their decision? So if you type a word in, type 2 words in, type 3 words in. We'll see as they come up. Flexibility.
Yep.
The boss, environment, salary, location.
Culture.
Cash, money, yep.
Lifestyle.
Choice. Company reputation. People they work with.
Yep.
Progression. Future
Working
opportunities,
from home.
values of the companies. Inclusiveness. Development, work from home. So I think
Social responsibility.
Richard gave me a bit of a lesson on how Mentimeter works a little bit earlier, which is a bit worrying for me. The ones that are bolder and bigger means people have put them in more than once. Thanks, Richard.
That's all right.
Richard's the technologist of the two of us. I'm the technosaurus.
So absolutely right. I think, you know, at the end of the day, flexibility is a major one right at the moment. And I don't think you could have potentially said that 2 years ago. There was no such thing.
Yeah, so this is some of the ones that come up most often and actually probably showed through with regards to that as well. Job security will only become as you have more uncertainty in the market. Things like inflation, increasing interest rates, all the stuff that creates uncertainty at home means people want security in the roles that they're going to. Money, we talked about money, and that also becomes more important as their cost of living's going up. And it obviously hasn't changed salaries. Look, I've recruited in Australia for 11 years now, I think, and the salaries, for all intents and purposes, they haven't moved a whole lot. They've maybe moved 5 to 10%, except in really technical areas. So cyber is certainly a lot more, probably from a DevOps perspective, it's a lot more, but for a lot of the roles, it actually hasn't moved a whole lot. Purpose, particularly for your Gen Z and millennial candidates, that's really important to them. And what are you about? Why do you do what you do? And how can that business and off that, they make a difference from that? And how you get that to the market is always interesting. And do you follow through on what you actually put up on your website? Because it's quite easy to put a purpose-driven statement on a website. What do you actually do off the back of it? Flexibility of hours and schedule, that being slightly different. That sort of plays into the work-life balance, but that flexibility piece is really important at the moment. And that comes down to sometimes, do you know what, you might be 5 days in the office, but actually you're quite happy, you know what, if you've got something you've got to do, go do it. I'm not going to ask you your questions. So there's a trust piece that comes with it. Work-life balance sort of ties into that. Office or work from home or hybrid, as I say, you need to work out what works for your business. Just ask Mr. Musk. He's quite certain that you need to be in the office, and that might be right for his business and what he wants to do. Location's also there as well, and is probably becoming more important. And there's a lot of other ones. One that probably didn't come up, mental health support is something that's quite important to a lot of candidates. And the other one, which I'm going to put in there, I think Scott's here, doing a piece of work for someone recently. We went through the process, got to final stage, taking the interview feedback, really like her, yeah. Want to go to just one thing, Andrew? Yep, which is always just one thing as a recruiter is like, oh no, seriously, what's going on here? Did you know that the candidate has a dog that has to come into the office because we get separation anxiety? I think was it the dog or the person? I think it was the dog.
Blame the dog.
We'll blame the dog. Yeah. So going through that, in fairness to the company, they were able to be flexible. However, the candidate chose another role on the basis they could work from home 5 days a week with the dog. So the dog could be at home as well. Yeah. Or another one in the same thing. And these are two things that were new to me with regards to recruitment, despite having done it for 25 years near enough. Candidate, last stage is going to offer, are they moving office, Andrew? Yep, they are moving office. Do you know what floor they're moving to? No. You're going to need to find out because I get vertigo if I go above floor 15. They're moving to floor 26. So that offer was done, dusted, move on. So there's a lot of stuff that's around at the moment that will come up with regards to that. The other thing that's really important is people's working relationships. Don't know if you want to add anything to any of that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, people like working with people, and what you'll find is that teams that are very effective are teams that like working together, and they also like socialising as well. And particularly with the Gen Zs and the younger generation. And if they have a fantastic team, then that they're working with, they're bound to stay with the organisation longer.
So, sorry, next Mentimeter, and I'll point it at the laptop. There we go. So how does a candidate or applicant find out about the companies that they want to work for? Where do they go to find the information?
Yeah.
Instagram, reviews, friends, Google, word of mouth.
Yep.
Social, staff reviews. Reviews, Mr. Patterson. All right, mate. Seek.
Social media, friends, networks.
I'm a bit worried that there's something
websites.
not on there, Rich. A bit worried there's one thing that's not on there. Recruiters. Can someone put recruiters up there, please? Okay. Right, we're leaving. Thanks very much. We're not actually needed. Not actually needed or wanted. Crying on the inside. So you've covered most of them there, but what I'd say is there's nothing revolutionary about it, but there are multiple ways that people will find out about your business before they go there. And actually one of them I've got up there, so Google form, which I only, in terms of, I know what a Google form is, but there was a candidate who was sending Google forms to companies to ask them to apply to him. Which I think is quite good on him for doing it, but he did. I think he found something off the back of it. But I put that up there just to say how far the market has moved, and the fact that companies do have to not sit there and think candidates will just come to us. We've actually got to sell what we do, sell how we do it, and create an environment that the candidate wants to come and work in. You've just got to do that around what works for you as a business. So it's about, which we'll come on to in a bit. But some of the other places they'll find will be the job description, it'll be the advertisement, they'll mystery shop. If I'm talking to a candidate, one of the biggest things I'll do to them is tell them to talk to their network. But yes, you'll use recruiters, but a lot of them will find jobs through their network.
Yeah. The interview process is an interesting one as well. Sometimes people use these sort of meet and greet interviews. So, an organisation, they might have a no dickhead policy, if you like. So they'll get candidates to meet 5 or 6 people at a peer level, a junior level, a senior level, etc. And there'll be bang, 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 6 interviews in a row, over 3.5 hours in one, and if the company picks the wrong people, they risk massively, a person that is on the hook no longer wanting to join their organisation. And a lot of those organisations, if they use that, so what happens then is that people will, if one person says no, and it could be somebody as a subordinate, a good candidate potentially might not be hired.
Yeah. If you work through I did a lot of work when I was in the UK, so I did 12 years recruiting in the UK, and that was all into investment banks. And Goldman Sachs run a 7-interview process, 4 people each interview. One person says no, doesn't matter what interview it is, done, and then it goes to New York head office, and there's a recruitment committee, and they work through, and they meet once a week, so it's, I think, 3 partners. They work through the pile from globally, get to a point at the end of the hour, right, those ones are done, the other ones are going to have to wait till next week. And they lose a lot of good candidates through that. They bank a little bit on their name. But you've just got to be careful with regards to what your process looks like. And one of the things I would say, you've got to balance getting the right person versus the speed of the process. Now, one thing I did do, I guess off the back of that, I did say I did a little rudimentary survey of 20 Vic Leader websites, just to see, okay, how do we advertise? How do we have a careers page? is there somewhere, what's it like to work for us? What's our EVP? And then I also did the same with the LinkedIn pages, because to be honest, they are probably the two things that are most in your control with regards to what your process is. So I looked at 20 companies, and the results were, I have to point this at the machine apparently. Yeah. So careers, and they had a contact on there, 40%, so that's 8 out of 20. That had a work for us page was 8 out of 20. I've got 33% there, given 20 obviously makes it a little bit tricky to get to 33%, but I gave a half to one company who sort of had something in there. And LinkedIn worked for us, which actually a lot of businesses now go more to their LinkedIn page than they will put money into their website, particularly in the UK. They'll just run it through their LinkedIn, with 0%. So it's probably an easy way.
How many had jobs that were advertised, just so I can help out?
Yeah, probably two. Had jobs that were advertised. There was one that, again, being hurt from the last one, that had no recruiters, please, which was a little bit hurtful as I went through. Okay, no, it wasn't you, but you're warm with regards to where you're sitting. So, and the ones that actually had some things that really worked on there were, some had video, which really work in terms of this is what it's like to work, and they had employees who were talking about what it was like to work there. There was words on why, in terms of pros of why people like the company, why people want to work there. EVPs were really easy to find on there. And the other thing that with them, some of them whilst they're there, believe me, finding them was very difficult in terms of finding that sort of information on there. It was at the bottom if you happen to click and maybe know where to look. So to me, that's an easy thing to fix, because what you're trying to do is attract the candidates to you before you need the candidates. If you start trying to attract them when you need them, it's an awful lot harder. You're in effect, you're going to advertising, is pretty much the sole way of doing it.
Let's not forget about advertising, as we've talked about before. If you advertise well, you're going to get the best person that's looking for a job
on that site.
Not necessarily the best person for the job.
Yeah. And you've stolen what I was going to say.
Okay,
so
thanks for that.
Jeez.
So it's the theory then, you're linking up with them on LinkedIn and then generating content to keep them engaged with your company.
Yeah.
To the point where when something does come up, they go, I want to...
So if I'm talking to a candidate and I'm sort of talking to them through a job search strategy. So most people, when they search for a job, let's say you're a graduate, what are they going to do? They're going to go through, they're going to go hit seek, and they're going to go send. They'll probably go to a careers team, say at Torrens, and what can you do to help me? And there might be some other thing. My first thing, as I said, is, okay, what industry do you want to work in? Look through your connections. Who do you know that work in those industries? Now try and organise as many coffee catch-ups or meetings with those people as you possibly can, and work through that way. And you're building, that allows then, but the reverse side of that, to answer your question, is you're then talking to these people. My advice is talk to them. Build up a pool, build up talent pools where you're short of candidates before you need them. Worst case scenario, if they found something else, you can go and ask your talent pool that you've built a relationship with, do you know anyone who might be able to work? Have you got any friends? Is there another Rob, maybe not, that we want to come and work for us? So you want to get them before that point, and that's having that information there that's really easy for them to find. That would suggest to me that it's not that easy to find necessarily. Okay, you're going to have to get ready on your Mentimeters again. I did say there'd be, I think this might be the last one. It's your last one. Last Mentimeter. I didn't point at the machine again. How can you find the right people? Word of mouth. Speaking of Jamie, Richard.
Yeah, cool.
I'm waiting for Chris to come up next. LinkedIn, incentivise employees. Incentivise employees is a really interesting one because there's a lot of it is there's a lot of companies I've worked for and they pay a bounty to the people internally. So go back to the investment banks. In London, they were paying £10,000. If you recommended someone, they'd pay you £10,000, 5,000 when they start and 5,000 when they complete probation. But that saved them paying a recruiter probably about the same amount of money.
You can have a downside of that too.
Yeah, the downside is you get the same people. You get this. There's a lot of it.
I know it's a different market, but 40 nights spent time at Bank West, and it had sort of the John West, and it was sort of like the John West approach to
Yeah.
recruitment, and there were a lot of duds, and they brought a lot of their friends along.
Yeah, you have to be careful if you're doing that approach. That person has to go through the same process as everybody else. You can't just skip the process as much as anything, because I would have thought if you're somewhere like a Bank West or a NAB, you've got an internal process, so you've probably got internal people applying as well, and you need to put them through the same process. Because if you put everyone through the same process, then it's far easier to give feedback and work through, and you can track back and say, yeah, that was the reason we hired that person. Whereas if you're just doing it spur of the moment, it doesn't work. And the other thing with getting people to recommend their friends is we can end up very much with a boys club or a group which is very non-diverse, non-inclusive. It's very set. So you just have to be really careful with regards to how you go about that.
So the other thing is, I noticed that people put up LinkedIn as a place to find people. Yes, you can find people via LinkedIn, no question. But I'm going to give you a big but here. If you remember the old yellow pages that we used to have that landed on our doorsteps, you could find a plumber in there as well. And the bigger the ad, the more likely you are to call it. But how do you know if that plumber's any good? You have no idea. So LinkedIn is basically a virtual equivalent of that, although it's got, I don't know how many millions of people on it. So be very, very careful about relying on LinkedIn to find talent.
Yeah. I think again with all of them, it goes back to your process. So the process isn't something we're going to cover in this, but as what we covered last time, is you need to have a really robust process that allows you to find who the best person is for the role. The more applicants you can generate, the more good applicants you can generate, and hopefully you've got 5 or 6 people you're trying to choose from. Where you end up with a problem is where you've got one person in the process and you're 50-50, how desperately do I need the person versus what's the risk involved? How does that sit, and how long am I willing to wait to have a bum in a seat or someone who's going to add value? And that's why you need to start the process that much earlier. That's him. That's not a hand up. He's saying 5 minutes. So then, that's covering off pretty much that. The other thing I'd say as well, have a look at some of the diversity-based websites if you want to improve your reach, because not every group will look in the same place. It's not necessarily set up for that, depending on where you are. So look at people or groups who help Indigenous people, the ability side of things, age, gender. There's a lot out there that are probably not being tapped into that could be tapped into. So just bear that in mind as well. And the other thing I'd say there, I heard someone saying earlier with regards to they were using the Swinburne workplace model. And there's that, we use Monash a little bit, and you can get people through, you can have them on internships where they're either paid internships or the candidates get, or the students get credits for it. So it's actually helping them from a credit perspective. And that can also enable you to have people who are coming through and you're inducting them almost in your business over a 10, 12 week period, and they're finding out, do I want to work there? How does that look? what does it look like? And that's another way to try and generate that, and the same with industry body partnerships. So think outside of things like, it's a very easy thing to go, I'm going to advertise this on Seek, or I'm going to go to a recruiter, and that's generally the two ways that people will look. But if you're talent pooling, there's a lot of other ways of going about it. Right, we're probably starting to cut ourselves. What can you do? Be really forthcoming with regards to your employee value proposition. What have you got to offer people who want to be there? But understand also internally, what do your people want? Because that's going to impact why applicants want to work for you as well. That'll help you understand what it is that you're trying to sell to those people. What do you want in your business? Richard and I, that conversation before with regards to Richard and I earlier in terms of work from home, do you want them in the office? Are you Elon Musk and you want them in the office because you want to have what the benefits that brings? Do you want to have them, they can fully work at home, or do you want to have them hybrid? There's different ways, and as I say, there's not a right answer, but be really certain with regards to what it is that you want and why, and then how you're going to sell that, or how you're going to attract candidates for that purpose. What's flexible, what's not? So what is flexible based on what's important to you? Be specific about what you're offering. And as I said before, the speed of the process, particularly at the moment, will make a really big difference.
I'm going to pose this question that
You
we
can
got there.
you pose that
I'm
question.
going to pose it. I'm going to want a show of hands on this one. Okay, you have a team with a very solid performance record, and everybody gets on well. You want to add to it, and the recruitment process has found a fantastic candidate that you really want to hire. What would you do? Would you hire them or not hire them based on the culture that you're trying to do with the organisation?
The candidate, though, wants to work from home 3 days a week and in the office 2 days a week. So your team's all in the office, they've got a really good culture. But this person that you think, yeah, they'd be great for the company, but they want to work from home 3 days a week and 2 days in the office.
So would you
Do you
hire
hire
or
the
not
person,
hire?
or do you not hire?
Hire or not hire? Hire.
It's the same as the other people in the team, and it's the same as the other people in the team. So they're all doing the same role. So it's probably 40% would hire, I think, based on the very rudimentary hands going up, versus 60% that wouldn't. And that's what you've got to work out, and that's why it's going to be different for every business. But liken that to, I'm going to let you tell the sales scenario.
So you find that you want to hire. This is 10 years ago. You find that you want to hire a top performing salesperson from another organisation. You know that they're top performing and they're performing really, really well, and you have a very, very good sales team working with you, but they're nowhere near as good as this top salesperson. Would you hire that person or not?
But that person is likely, I'm the but person.
Yes.
Yeah, that person comes with arrogance, attitude difficulties. They're going to change the culture of the team.
And you risk losing the sales team that you've got. Would you hire them or not?
So no. What's the difference?
So what we're really saying is, just because it's a working from home or hybrid option, if you're risking the team, be very, very careful about it. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think it really would come down to one, what your onboarding and induction process is like, the strength of your management team, all those sorts of things have to be considered, because if you've got a strong processes in place, you've got a strong management team, I think a lot of the risks can be...
A lot of them can be. I think your trick is around, I guess what we're looking at is how does that impact that particular team? And as I say, there's no right or wrong answer, but it's just something to bear in mind.
The infrastructure you have to, keep that culture going.
Yep.
How does everybody communicate? How often?
Yep.
All that kind of stuff. Like, you've got all that there.
Yep.
It doesn't really matter where people live.
That's
Chris?
fine for your organisation, which is absolutely fine. So I think that's what we're trying to say to you guys. think carefully about what it is that you want. Do you want to return back to pre-COVID, everybody in the office 5 days a week, or do you want the flexibility? Do you like it? How does it work for you and the organisation that you guys are working for or own? If it's working, fantastic. If you want everybody back in the office, fantastic, but realise the implications that that may have on A, your existing team, and B, your future hires.
And that's just part of the culture. There's a whole lot of other things that feed into culture, and that's probably the easiest thing to pick on at the moment. But just to finish up, I think the biggest thing is know your business, know what you want before you go to market, and have that so that candidates can find it easily also before you go to market. We've got time for 2 questions, Rob, or not?
We've got
One question.
Fire away.
Sorry, Chris.
Fire away.
It was just one. Right, it was just one question.
I know we've had our dealings recently, but
Yep.
in saying that, we've had the one big but being flexibility and things like that.
Yep.
The rest of them, though, that we've looked at have all seemed to be more office-based or environment-based and open to that return to the office
Yep.
space. Are you seeing a hell of a lot more of the flexibility and work from home, or a little bit?
I think it's probably 50-50. And what I'm finding at the moment is, so I met a client today, so CFO at a large not-for-profit, and he can't get his existing staff to come back into the office. So what he's doing is he's got hiring potential. He's hiring people who want to be in the office, almost as a way to persuade the other people to come into the office. Because what he's finding is the people who aren't in the office are doing their job and doing what they need to do, but they're not doing the extra stuff to help out X or help on the project over here. So there's a balance, and I think it's still being found out. You've got other businesses who are being really strict with regards to you have to come back to the office. And it's interesting, my team, we were hybrid, and we've gone back to working in the office, and that's actually based on the fact that, and my team's probably age 24 to 29, aside from the really old guy who sits on the end. And they all want to be in the office. They actually want to be in the office because they want to be around people, around friends, able to go out and do lunch together and whatever it might be. So I'd also say with that, don't draw stereotypes and think that because they're Gen Z or millennial that they want to be the other ones that want to work from home. It's not necessarily a generational thing. It's just different horses for different courses, and I need to give this horse back his course.
Well done, put your hands together for Richard and Andrew.